Welcome to Slate Against the Machine. We're a podcast project of Fae Pictures. I'm Abdul. I'm the VP of Development at Fae, formerly Director of Development. And let me introduce you to my underling, Leonard Chan.
Hello, I am Abdul's underling, the Director of Development, formerly nothing at Fae. And let me introduce you to our VP of Finance, Lisa. Take it away.
Hi, I'm the VP of Finance, Lisa. And now let me introduce you to Shant, our owner.
Our boss, Mr. Bossman, Mr. Bossman himself. Yeah. We're all
I don't like the
when
word
say,
owner.
Don't owner. It's not
president.
Cool
you guys are not. See, the thing is, owner. I'm your owner. I'm Leonard's owner. That
there's plantation vibes, you know.
Yeah, technically, you do own all of us in a sense because we've given so much of our fucking souls to this company at this point that we might as well sign those checks in ink, Shant.
We've leased our souls. We've leased our souls to Shant.
Yes,
and you own a piece of my heart. That's what you own.
Wow!
All right, there you go.
Wow.
Alongside a certain percentage of the company. I'm unsure which one is more valuable at this point, but I'm hoping one will outweigh the other. And what we're doing here is we're actually pulling back the curtain on the Canadian and a bit of the international film industry, television industry. We're, ostensibly on top of our great riffs and conversations about human ownership, giving emerging and underrepresented filmmakers the tools to get started and thrive. So Shant does not own you.
Exactly.
And today we will be talking about development. Just so everyone here knows, I'm very part-time at Fae because I'm a writer who's in a lot of development. A lot of those projects happen to be with Leonard, who is not my underling on those projects, but we are collaborators. We are each other's underlings. It's a mutually beneficial agreement.
We're co-underlings.
Yeah, sort of like a clownfish and a reef.
It's symbiotic.
So
exactly.
Speaking of films that spent zero time development because they were perfect, Finding Nemo. But
who's the fish?
I know who is the fish.
We take turns. We take turns being the fish.
Yeah, we take turns being the fish.
And we're always clowns, though. We're always clowns.
Oh, absolutely. And we've both spent a lot of time in development, both together, apart, in the company, outside of the company. Shant and Lisa have spent a lot of time in development, both in the documentary, feature, and TV space. And frankly speaking, we've all done it with some incredibly positive, some incredibly middle of the road, and some incredibly negative results. And probably a good way for us to kick this off is to just talk about, because this can be so vague. What is development? How would we qualify development within the Canadian system, just so everyone knows?
Yeah, I can start here, and I don't know, Leonard, if you want to pick it up. And basically, from my understanding, from a business standpoint, basically, development is when you go from an idea ultimately into a product. And generally, that can also be a little bit vague, but basically it helps sort of contextualize the actual action of being in development. I mean, technically, I can come up with an idea about a movie about Billy Bob and Marlowe go to space and be like, that's an idea. It's an idea, and it goes into development once I develop it into something that actually can be like a product. Like if I present it, it's like, okay, but ultimately there's a series of steps that are actually materially development, which involve, going from an idea to a log line to a concept, outline to a treatment to a script, and all the steps in between, whether it's, breaking down story, structure, beats, character workshops, table reads, etc. But yeah, it's basically from the inception of an idea through to
everything before production,
everything before the physical manufacturing of the product creatively. Lisa, Yeah, sorry.
Lisa
Lisa,
giggled.
do you
Why
laugh?
did you giggle?
I mean, that's quite broad. Yes, I mean, it's true. It's everything for production. And development and production are everything before it's out in the world. So.
Before
That's
the
right.
edit.
Exactly.
Anyway.
I think a very simple way of putting it for people who haven't been in the development cycle is when you have an idea, whether it's a script, a pitch, a document, something like that, almost never does it get picked up by somebody and go straight to production, right? You'll pitch it to a production company. The production company will take it on. They'll want to refine it and develop it further because they have their partners at networks and buyers and studios. And then they'll take it to networks and buyers and studios. And hopefully one of those people will give you more money to develop it. And then they'll want to put their own stamp on it the same way the production company did. And then once everyone has their stamp on it and everyone agrees, wow, this is good enough to get made, it'll either get made or people will say, you know what, we tried our best with it and, it's a pass and the project dies. You'll find high anxiety usually in like beginning of year and October among a lot of senior creatives because that's green light season for TV shows, for example.
In Canada.
In Canada. And speaking of Canada, thank you, Lisa. One of the things that separates Canada from like the U.S. actually is that a lot of development in Canada is paid. That is not common for America at all.
Paid by external parties, yes.
Yes, no one will put down their own money on a project. Please.
Yeah, if we're putting out our own money, then it doesn't count as being paid.
So I think it depends as well, because really development, the way I think of it, it's funny, we all have our slightly different angle. I think of it as we want to make this thing. It could be a scripted narrative piece. It could be factual, reality, documentary, whatever, kids. So we have the idea. Lovely. Is someone going to suddenly give us money and trigger other money? No. They want to see some kind of proof of concept. And often, so you have to develop the idea a little bit. And you have to either come up with, for factual or documentary, you go out, you shoot something, you cut a trailer, a teaser, you put together some written materials, you identify character, whatever. Okay, now this is where we're headed. And you have to give them proof of where you're headed. With narrative or scripted, you're working on scripts, you're working on treatments, outlines, all the rest.
Sizzles.
And this is
demo pilots even.
Yeah. Also like mood board, like all the things, and then sending that in. This is where we're headed. So development is the stage where you're putting all this stuff together to prove where you want to head with the full production. And you're hoping that you don't have to pay for all of this out of pocket, because most people aren't going to do this work for you for free as a producer. So really development can also refer to
unless you're American, apparently.
Yeah.
So you apparently have a lot of money, because that's what I've heard. Everybody
and
in
the
America
Saudis,
is doing
they
great.
do have the money, but they just don't send it.
They just don't send it. I mean, Americans are interesting because, like, the way it works in Canada is you don't get paid nearly as much as you do in the States. But when you get to a studio and the studio buys it, you make all the money. You make so much money. It's kind of crazy how big those checks can get, right? Whereas in Canada, over the lifetime of a project, you'll be paid like maybe a quarter to 30% if you're lucky of what you might get in the States, but you're actually paid a lot of that money and you're paid over a longer timeline so you can like afford to live in a way that's like harder to work than in the US, where like, you'll spend years working on a project for free until you get money to like develop it and back pay yourself for all the work, and it'll be a lot, right? So I just want to,
but you're starving until then.
Yeah,
I guess most of that development money sits either with like maybe like a little bit of like, here's a little bit of skin in the game kind of thing. A producer will give you like, I don't know, an option extension fee or like some sort of I don't know, shopping rights payout basically. But I think the other thing about the American system is that they have a lot of people in development on the payroll. So that is a lot of where development money, I imagine, goes. If it doesn't go to the writers, it's going to those development executives who are on the payroll and, developing a multitude of projects and generating, IP because I guess that's the other thing is if you're getting paid in production, that means that America, as the capitalistic place that it is like only when the product is being manufactured, does it have value? Up until then, all the blueprinting, all the planning, all the ideating, all the conceptualizing, that's worthless in the American system, I guess, basically.
Well, I mean, there's a little turn on that where like a studio might pay you to develop a feature or hire you onto something, right? Like I'm in the process of negotiating with an American studio on a project right now. And that's like to write a script, but all the legwork leading up to that point, like they are prepared to, fingers crossed, commit to way beyond just writing the script, right? Like they're like, we are not paying you to write the script, we're paying to make the movie. Unfortunately, the script has to be a part of that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not actually saying that's what the experience is like, but like that's the sort of vibe of like getting paid for development in the US is like, we're not paying someone to write something outright. Like we're paying as part of a larger production project that we intend to make ASAP, right? Like it's that sort of deal. But let me pivot us and ask, and this is a very open-ended question, what does a good development cycle look like for you? Like what is the idea of like a good development cycle? Like what does it mean to be healthy in development?
For one project or for a slate?
For one project.
Well, I mean, for me, it would be, like you're working with, okay, well, from the perspective of, let's say, the creative, as opposed to like on the producer side. But like as the creative, like I want to work with a producer who understands what we're trying to do. We're all on the same page, right? And they're not trying to tell me, okay, we actually have this idea in mind and we're going to try to like shoehorn your idea into our idea. No, what they're doing and what any good producer would do is, look at what you're trying to do and then help you do that as best you can, right? Make the best version of the idea that we're all collectively on the same page on, right? And then everything is like well communicated, right? We collaborate, we brainstorm, right? We have fruitful conflict to come up with the best ideas, and the best ideas win. And then we go from stage to stage seamlessly, right? And then somehow, talent that we believe would be right for this agrees, and they decide to.
So Leonard, because here's the thing, Leonard, you've been on the writer side of it, and you've been on the producer side of it, because you're a development executive at Fae Pictures, and I just want to talk about, because you and I have this conversation many a times where we will receive something,
yes,
and then we will discuss, okay, this is what we got, and then we're like, but it could be this.
Yeah, well, but that's like I think, okay, so for my, yes, we do have that conversation, but from my perspective, it's
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying
it's a good thing.
We have had this conversation, and I'm sort of calling us.
We literally had this conversation a week ago.
Yeah, we've also had this conversation where, but Abdul, where we have this conversation where it's like, well, maybe we can trick them into getting it to what we want it to be, which never really works out. Ultimately.
I don't remember thinking
this is scripted, right?
No, we're not sure. No, we've never said the word trick, but I think we've tried to. Here's the thing: we steer. There's also relationship building. There's a relationship building part of development. This is a working relationship with somebody who's putting their heart and soul into their written material, and you're trying to be sensitive about that while also trying to, in some ways, because we've dealt with this so many times, where you're trying to be like, okay, but this is what we sold to the people paying us to make this happen.
And this is,
Abdul, go ahead.
To your point, there's two sort of things I want to add on to this, right, Shant? Like the first one, to put a softer spin on the idea of tricking someone, I think there is a value you assign to a project based on what promise you see in it, right? Like we got a project not too long ago from a writer named Adam Hussein, right? It was a legal show, but it was like a pretty serialized legal show. And the conversation we had with Adam, I think, which was very clear and very sincere and not full of tricksiness, was, we love the characters, we love the world, we love the idea. We don't think format-wise this is tangible in the marketplace, but we would love to sort of reverse engineer a lot of these into a procedural and dial out some of the more serialized elements you put in there, right?
Yeah,
and Adam
keeping them, but drawing them out over a longer period of time.
Absolutely. And Adam
Because
was
the market likes that more.
100%, and we have to be sensitive to that. And Adam was very receptive to it, right? And then on the other side of it, and I can talk about this from the creative side as someone who's worked with a lot of producers at this point. The production company actually has a very tough job in this process, where it's like you're both trying to keep the creative happy, keep the project chugging, but you're also trying to satisfy the demands of the people with money, whether or not you're in development or you're planning to pitch to them. And I think something that in a good development cycle is you find a producer who's willing to advocate and fight for you, who won't roll over the second they get a note that you don't like or that even they don't like but feel like they need to serve, but also a producer who's willing to play ball, with the network and be that intermediary and be like, let's help find the note beneath the note. What are they actually talking about? Like, who will tell you, like, protect this. We love this and we want you to love it and we're going to fight to keep it, but we have to compromise in these 4 other places in order to keep it. Like,
that's really a great point, Abdul. I want to talk a little bit about development for factual and documentary, but your point just now, Abdul, that you want a producer, the creatives are looking for a producer that's not just going to cave all the time to notes. That actually is a relationship that the creative is and the producer are going to want to maintain throughout production as well. It's also when you're showing assemblies, rough cuts, fine cuts, there's another round of back and forth with the people with the money, the people with the idea, and how are we putting it all together. So that's such an excellent note, and it carries through. For a development cycle for a documentary, which is the majority of my experience, or perhaps factual, is going to look different, because with factual, it's a little more scripted or planned in advance, if you will. With documentary, it's really not, because you are documenting real life scenarios. Depends what type of documentary. If it's more you're investigating an issue or something like that, it can be a little bit more planned out ahead of time. But if you're following people's lives, you can't plan a thing. You cannot plan a thing. And so it's what I feel the most useful thing in development is to be showing that you have access to something, you really have it, and that there are people who are real people living their real lives who work really well on screen, and that also you figured out your shooting style, you figured out your editing pace, because a teaser that you put together from early footage that has been shot at an early stage is also demonstrating your overall creative approach to the material. And so that's what a development cycle, I guess, in documentary, that's the best it can do.
So I guess, sorry, Lisa, I guess one of the things, like, just coming back to the point around that balancing act of the creative versus the money. And obviously documentary is mostly funded by grants and donors and
broadcast
special interest
licenses,
groups, broadcast licenses, etc., even tax credits.
Streamers.
I would say one of the key things I'm familiar when it comes to documentary and that navigation is a lot of it comes down to the choices that the director decides to make. I mean, a lot of that comes in the edit, but it also comes in choosing what to document, what to shoot, and getting
what
also
to lose, by the way.
what to lose. Like, I'm curious,
that.
just for your perspective, Lisa, when you're a producer working with a director, and I imagine you've had a couple of these moments where you've had a dispute or a disagreement about the ethics of documentary. Like, a lot of it comes down to ethics and making decisions that the director may not necessarily maybe fully buy into, but it's sort of necessary for the overall commercialization of the documentary.
Oh yeah, never mind outright legal considerations. Often enough, the 3 main documentaries that I've produced all had a court case going on at some point somewhere. And so there was extensive checking and there's extensive, but that's more in production. But even in the development stage, you're already going to want to think through, okay, this is this story, but are we focusing on the court case? Well, do we have access to the court? Can we film? How are we going to show that? Or are we actually focusing more on how people are fighting for justice in the court system? So most of the film will be outside of the actual court case, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not so much, I guess that's some development that just keeps playing right through in production. And there's enough stories of documentaries where you put together a whole huge plan and then life happened and bang, it's completely different.
Queen of Versailles, right?
Queen of Versailles, I think the one that really struck me, it was way back when a film crew were in, I want to say Venezuela, filming in the presidential palace with the powers that be. And then there was a coup. And so they suddenly had the extraordinary, absolutely exclusive footage as the coup was happening. And that just became a big documentary, and it was not their planned documentary at all. Also, someone who was shooting, around the Twin Towers on September 11th.
I was going to say that's an incredible documentary. It's probably the only major firsthand, on the ground account of 9/11 as it happened from day till night.
And it's serendipity. You cannot develop that.
And we were in cahoots with Osama. They make an amazing documentary.
Before we pivot out, I think one of the things that you brought up, Lisa, and just generally about development, and something everyone should know is that production, capital P production, is just a series of compromises. You know what I mean? It is an endless litany of just compromises. The money isn't there, the time isn't there, you had an actor get sick, you had someone walk off, you lost some crew, we need to cut some pages. And really a good development relationship is protecting the integrity of the project as much as possible so that you still know what it is by the time you have to go into that stage where you're just making nonstop compromises, right?
It's creative problem. I think I would call
solutions.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. I wasn't going to call it compromise. It's about creative problem solving whilst maintaining the platonic heart of the project, which through development, you and the producers, the writers, the creators, and the producers have now really fully understand what this thing is. I think that's what, to bring it back to your original question, I think that is what a successful development cycle looks like, where the creative and the producers work together, collaborate, whilst keeping in mind the realities of the market and budget and all these things to come up with something that's production ready, that maintains the integrity, the heart of what the project was from the get-go.
It's interesting.
I think both develop together. Because the heart can change.
Yes. Two things you said there, Leonard. First is keeping your eye on the market during development. So I think narrative and scripted are going to have a slightly different feel. I mean, for all types, the producer especially is endlessly monitoring what is selling, what is pitching, what is succeeding, what is getting awarded, et cetera, not just in terms of content, in terms of style, in terms of everything, right? So that's endless. You're right.
I mean, I think you also want a producer who's not so beholden to the market that informs every decision. You know, I mean, people like bravery, people like people who gamble, people like people who are pragmatic and know how to take a very calculated risk, because they don't just, again, in the interest of relationship building, you're not a good producer is not looking at one project. They're looking at anyone they work with and they're like, I want to make this person potentially like my Taylor Sheridan. That's a little glib, but there's a really interesting quote from that article that came out recently about his breakup with Paramount, where one executive who was in the middle of that was like, why would you lose someone like that? They create universes, they don't create shows. They create a domino effect of billions and billions of dollars, but because they were trusted to do so way back when. Also, Sheridan did get paid, I believe, less than scale for his very first feature, so there's hope for all of us, guys.
Definitely. But I mean, I think that's why I work with both of you so well, is that you guys are, it's not just one project, it's not just one story, it's like you said, worlds basically. And that's why it's sort of Abdul, for example, you developed Streams Flow from River pretty much laissez-faire. I think at that point when we were at the company, you were like actively developing projects with us. Not to say you're not right now, but it's a lot more supervisory, let's say. But you ushered that series straight through to production to such a level that, I mean, for us as producers, like Lindsay and I being on set and Lauren running production, it was pretty smooth. Like, decisions that were being made by a filmmaker who was doing the job for the first time in such a big capacity, but also with someone who had such confidence about his material, and such confidence that ideally the producers were also backing his material, that he was able to make decisions that ultimately, you know, not just made a great film or a series, but also got us on budget and on time, which was like chef's
Now,
kiss.
let's quickly pivot out of good development to bad development.
Oh,
Let's create a case study. Let's create a fictional case study film. Let's call it King Nefertiti.
my God.
Let's say there's a film called King Nefertiti that is a feature film that was brought to a company called Doe Pictures.
Oh my God.
And what does a bad development cycle on, say, a feature or a TV show look like to us?
Yeah.
I have an overall note,
Sure,
not
Lisa, go ahead.
specific to anything. I think what's also happening in development, especially if the creative and the producer or producing team are working together for the first time, is you are sussing each other out in great detail. How does this actually play out? We can have all the early talking, happy. Now we're actually doing something. Is this a fit or not? So I think that's also, it's a good development cycle if you're able to suss that out well, even if the answer is we're not going to move forward with you. So that's my general note. Okay, sorry. Thanks.
Oh no, that's actually great. No, that's a great note. I think, yeah, if the producer and the creator or the creative are so like in sync that it's like there's no pathway here. Let's just, you know, shake hands and
So out of sync, you mean?
No. They're in sync so much that if they know that a project has reached the end of its life, they will both be able to deal with it in such a mature way that it's not, you know, contentious. It's not like, oh, you haven't cared for my baby enough that it's not, you know, going there. I mean, we've had so many projects get shelved, and especially many projects that like Abdul and Leonard have developed with us. Great projects.
Love those projects.
Love those projects.
You have to know when to walk away.
Exactly.
You have to be like Kenny Rogers. You have to know when to hold him, know when to fold him, you know when to walk away, and know when to run.
Yeah.
And we've had
you should count your money when you're at the table, though. I always hated that line. It's like, well, how are you going to gamble if you don't know how much you got? Anyways, going on.
And that's how a jilted creative jumps you in the parking lot. But like, I think obviously with King Nefertiti, I'm talking about Queen Tut, a film that we worked on that I think we would all describe as like a fairly disappointing experience, and I think there is an interesting case study to be made of that, right? Because I do think everyone involved in that film did have the best of intentions, right? But it's like
definitely, yeah, and I will take the blame for you know, and that's the thing. That's, as a producer, the one sort of unique part of our jobs is that we will have to take responsibility for everything that happened, regardless of who said what or who did what or whatever. The buck stops with us. And the liability stops with us. We're the ones on the line with the bank loan. We're the ones on the line with the funders. We're the ones on the line with the lawyers, everything. So
I think one of the I'm going to pause you there because I think one of the things there that you touched on, which is so good, is like there's liability, there's ownership, there's also creative stake in the project, right? And I think the biggest sign of bad development, and this is the thing that no one might even realize until midway through production, by the way, especially in narrative, is that when you each have a different idea of what you're making, like you're not simpatico and you all have a different idea of what the show is, and no one's really addressing that or talked that or even realized that you all have different ideas. And by the way, this is not exclusive to us. There have been documented cases of shows, certain co-productions with, say, a company like, a major cable streamer in the U.S. and stuff like that, that fallen apart because, like, once scripts were delivered, both of the networks were like, we thought we were getting a completely different show than what we got. And the other network was like, well, we thought we were getting this other show, right? Like, it's like, that is like the biggest sign of bad development, is where you're both trying to like make each other happy. That was like what happened on Queen Tut. The writers, the production company, and the director all had a different vision of a good movie. All of us sort of met in the middle in a way that was probably not great. You know what I mean?
I mean, it made a like the funny thing is, like, time and time again, people come up to me, not come up to me, but like I've talked to people and they're like, oh yeah, I saw Queen Tut and it was amazing, and oh, it's so wonderful, and congrats on the film, and et cetera, et cetera. And who am I to say that they're not authentically?
They're wrong.
No, I'm not.
As one of the credited writers on the movie, they're wrong.
But at the same time, I know that, you know that, most people here know that, but you can't discount as well. Some people are being sincere and some people are just being nice, and there's a lot of that in this industry.
Some people are right.
And some people are wrong and some people are right. But also in this industry, we do tend to give a lot of confirmation bias to each other, to be like, oh yeah, you made a good thing. Like, no one seems to be being honest. And actually, this is when we were in the edit on Queen Tut, we had one broadcaster who said, this looks great, this is amazing, we love this is really fun, we're super down for it. And the other broadcaster called me and was like, what the fuck? Like, this is not good. You need to fix this movie really bad, like right now. What happened on set, and why is this the movie that you just delivered? Why is this the rough cut that you just delivered to me? Two very polar opposites reactions to the same cut. And that was after the film was made. And the thing was that time and time again, even during development, I would share the script with different people and everyone would have different reactions. And this is also my naivete starting development. I literally started development on Queen Tut right after finishing film school. And so I was just learning how to do development on the fly, basically.
I mean, we both were. All of us were, to be fair. Like, there's a lot of things I would change about the development process on that movie, start to finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, like it was, we had to learn how to give notes. And we had to learn how to fight for the things we needed to fight for. Not to say that was necessarily being pushed back against. Wasn't specifically that, but I guess it sort of was like, and we're dealing with this right now actually on another project where it's sort of like trying to identify how to give the note in a way that it lands and in a way that ultimately, regardless of our own taste or our own point of view, generally any sort of general person can look at the final product of what that note precipitated into and be like, oh, that was good, right? Their average person can be like, oh, that was good. That note has to hit in that kind of way. And the thing is, it is such an art and it is very difficult. And we get it wrong a lot of times. I'll, be honest in terms of like how we think about notes, and also in trying to protect our relationship with the person that we're trying to work with. At times we will sort of take our note and soften it to make sure we're not hurting their feelings or making, and that sucks because we're not giving the honesty of the way we should be honestly communicating about development at times.
So this is okay.
Please.
One of the things I was going to say earlier is that in development, I think it's a really good time also to, because I've been there, where we're ripping a teaser or a trailer to shreds. And again, documentary, we're ripping scene selects to shreds. We're ripping our written materials to shreds. We're ripping our pitch to shreds, just ripping it completely apart and rebuilding it until it works. Because if you go through that really tough honest creative process. First of all, one film we ended up with amazing trailer, wonderful, it mattered, amazing scene selects, and that's what got us in front of everyone, and that's what got us the funding, and that's what got the film made. But it was really, I realized later, it was really useful to do this early, rip it to shreds. There's not feelings. Feelings don't matter here. We need to be very, very honest about what's working. And then we even they're doing a bit of test, either pitching or showing a teaser or showing written materials to people in the industry who are not people you're going to try to hit up for money or support, but who still are actively giving feedback. Can be one of the best things, because they'll just be like, it doesn't work. Like, I don't know what you're doing here. That can also be a really good thing to do in development, partly to really literally get the feedback, but also to build that habit in the key team that no, this is not about nice feelings. This is about, is this working creatively or not? So,
and I think there's sort of two takeaways here before we sort of wrap out. I think one of the things with notes is really interesting because, like, I think writers, if you're working with good collaborators, not just writers, they'll appreciate blunt notes as long as those notes are like about meeting the project where it's at. I understand what you were trying to do. This is why you are not getting there. Like, whether or not you agree with what they're trying to do, right? Like, is a whole other problem. But it's like, oh, I'm trying to make a schlocky B movie, for example. I'm meeting this project on the level of, like, how can it be the best schlocky B movie it can be? Yeah, I mean, like, you never make notes personal. The other thing I'll say, oh, sorry, Leonard, do you want to add to that?
I just want to bring up an example of that. Remember, like, on second season of Streams, on one of the scripts, like, one of the notes was like, hey, you were using like a slur that maybe we don't use this, but like it was used for a very specific reason. Right. So, like, I think it was like a knee-jerk reaction for one of the notes be like, take this out, when the reason for the slur being used was to really, it was clear that it was about the relationship between two of the main characters. Right. So the only reason it didn't work is because it really hadn't been set up prior. So the correct note, I think, which you did take, was not take out the slur. It was more slurs, but earlier on.
Yeah, the movie is now a hate crime in motion. 24 frames. But the other thing I'll say from the creative side of it is the worst, even worse than getting personal notes, like notes that feel like they attack the project or misunderstand the project, is cowardly notes, where the producer is trying to get you to suggest the change because they don't want to tell you to make the change. Like, and there are great, like, we're just not sure about this vis-a-vis this note. Like, what do you think you could do here? Maybe you could this, like, throw us an idea. And they're like trying to guide you to an answer because they're terrified of just committing to an idea or a note or something they're giving you. There's, companies we've all worked with who will do that because they're afraid of pissing off the network, but they're also afraid of pissing off you, right? And it's like, you can tell them I won't be offended, but they don't want to take responsibility if the note is bad. They want to be able to say, hey, it's your fault, right? You did it this way, and ignore the part where they led you to it. And that's actually not for nothing. That's not just one production company. A lot of producers do that for various, actually very understandable reasons, but like, that's not good. I just want, and that's,
it doesn't result in great content, unfortunately. No. I think it's when you're really aligned and you're all on the same page, like, then like Abdul said, you're going to make the best schlocky B movie because you're all on the same page. You're all going for that. And ideally, you're all sort of, you have the same vision, the same taste, the same comps, the same ideas of like, oh, it could be like this. But if suddenly I think we saw this very much with Queen Tut, where I literally in my head was like, oh, it could be. And I'll be honest, what I thought the movie would hopefully end up taking itself to would be a little bit like a sort of like a Canadian Bollywood-esque movie, right? Like, I wasn't saying like it needed like all these songs and dances, but I was like, it's a drag queen movie. There's song and dance and drag. I'm not saying it needs to be like specifically Indian music, but I'm like, what I loved about Bollywood and classic, like not classic, 90s Bollywood, the Bollywood I grew up with, 90s and 2000s Bollywood, was just this sort of joie de vivre that really kept the audience's heart attached to the characters. And we didn't. I mean, and I was hoping we would sort of eventually get there, but because I wasn't being honest with myself and because I wasn't being honest with everyone else, I never mentioned it. I may have mentioned it in passing, but not in a way that was sort of like, well, this is really how I think the movie should be. And I just sort of tried to lead them there, or in some ways trick them there to get.
And
there.
It's also, oh, sorry, Leonard, please.
I'm just saying that just doesn't become actionable. That's all. Like, you want to give people notes that are like clear and actionable, and once you agree on them, obviously.
And it's a good example in like, well, if none of our collaborators are getting the notes, maybe we shouldn't be collaborating with each other, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a big that was, I think, Queen Tut, for all of its challenges, was what I would describe as like the best learning experience on how to make and develop a feature, because there's so many things you just won't repeat. You know what I mean? Because you're like, shit, none of this fucking worked. You know what I mean? Like it barely cohesed, and there's value to that.
I have a saying that helps to wrap all of this up. I mean, I assume you're heading there, Abdul.
I was heading there, but I'll take the saying. I'll take something pithy. Lisa, throw it at me.
It's like the more experienced producers, the way you, how do you say it? The way you measure how experienced a producer is by how long the list is of things they know never to do again.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we have a list that's only growing every day in every meeting and every decision we make. Let's kick it to what have we been watching, what have we been reading, what have we been consuming, imbibing, dissolving into our flesh. Leonard, what have you been shoving into your brainstem this week?
Well, it's funny you use that particular turn of phrase, because I just watched Pluribus, the first 2 episodes, which I believe at the time of this recording are the only 2 episodes that are out. And goodness, it is a fascinating show. I don't want to spoil it for you, because like I'm not going to talk about what it's about, because I went into it deliberately knowing nothing about it, and I think that's the very best way you could possibly enjoy this show.
And there's a great image. Like, I mean, the image that you see on all, like, it's the same image across the board. It's that yellow, like black backdrop and the craziness, and it's like, it's very attractive. Like it's I'm like, I want to watch this eventually, and I don't want to know anything about it.
So you don't know anything about it, right?
I don't know anything about it. Yeah, great. Only that Abdul's recommended it, and now you've recommended it.
Keep it that way. I went in with no understanding of what it was about, but I will say it's a very, very simple idea. It's a very simple turn on a sort of an existing concept, but like, because it's Vince Gilligan, right, who did Breaking Bad, and of course got started on the X-Files, right? So it's kind of like the best of those things, and it's it just asks like a fairly simple question, and then it just and puts very compelling characters into a crucible with which to answer that particular question. So I think that's the
I mean, the great thing about Vince Gilligan is that he got his start on the X-Files in the era where you could just like write a script and send it in. They'll be like, this is really good. We'll make it and give you a job, which I'm pretty sure is how he got his first job, because he did the thing you're not supposed to do, which is send your spec script to the show you're trying to get on. But oh my God, it was like, what a brain and what an incredible mind. Like, this is very clearly a blank check project for him. Like, if this show sucked, it would raise a lot of conversations about how much money they're giving this guy, but it is incredible.
It's worth the blank check.
The pluribus in this room is going to deconvene now. We're going to all separate, go our individual ways. Thank you so much for listening.
And do you know about the social media thing?
Yes, you can find Fae Pictures on all social medias at Fae Pictures. You can find Shant at Joe Rogan. You can find Leonard at you can find me. You can find me at Abdul Y Malik on Instagram, although I rarely post. However, I will be posting wedding photos whenever we get those in. So
waiting for those. My mom is also waiting for those. great speed.
They're going to be great once we actually get them. It's like a 3-week turnaround because photographers have things called time and other jobs and needing to sleep.
Lousy things. Everyone can follow me at Shant Joshi 95 on Instagram, and I'm everywhere else. It's Fae Pictures. Leonard?
Cool. Yeah, I'm at the Leonard Chan on all the things. Lisa?
Oh, I can't remember what I am, but you can find me. My last name is
having an existential crisis.
Bro.
If you follow me on X, you'll suddenly understand my very left political leanings.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.